Hello again and welcome to the channel. Have you ever come back from a photography trip really excited about the pictures that you take and you pull them up on your computer and you realize they really haven't come out the way that you would have liked them to? One of the areas that I struggle with is around composition. And when I'm generally dissatisfied with a photo, it very often has everything to do with the way I compose the picture. What I'm going to do in this episode is show you some photos where I've made some mistakes and what I'm doing to try to correct those. My name is Jerry Kita and I live in North Carolina. A few years ago, as I was approaching retirement, I purchased a camera with the idea of becoming a photographer. Since then, photography has taken me to some wonderful places all over the world and I've made many new friends. I've come a long way, but I know I'm still trying to figure this all out. I'm having a lot of fun, and this is my journey. So before we get into the pictures, let me give you a little bit of background about myself. As you know, I got into photography only a few short years ago as I was approaching retirement. And I'd spent my corporate life in the IT world. And as a result, things like electronics and software and understanding how a camera worked are things that I'm very, very comfortable with. What's been one of the more challenging parts of my journey is the creative side of photography. And a huge element of that is composition. And that's an area where I continually have to put in some work. Now, I am far better than I was maybe 2 or 3 years ago, but I still have a ways to go. And that's what we're going to talk about in this episode. So let's get into the pictures. So here are the photos we're going to look at today. And all the photos come from a recent trip that I made to Indonesia. And in particular, these photos were taken on the island of Sumba. And what you see in front of you are mangrove trees. And these mangrove trees, for whatever reason, are somewhat stunted in their growth. And they create these beautiful backdrops for taking photos, especially at sunrise and at sunset. So here's the first photo. And, overall, there's lots to like about this photo. I like the colors. I like, the subject matter. I think the composition is okay with the 3 trees. But when I got home, what I noticed was the way the horizon kind of cuts through the middle of the trees, or at least the tree trunks. And what I think I missed was that there was an opportunity here to really lower that camera much closer to the water, such that it would create the illusion that the trees are almost sitting on the horizon. And at the same time, I don't beat myself up too much for it. Here we are, wading in salt water. I was a little paranoid about the camera being, too close to the salt water. If I had slipped and it had gone underwater, I would have, lost the camera, and that would have been it for the trip, since I don't carry a backup camera body. But nevertheless, one of the composition things that I did see immediately was that it would have been really good if I'd been able to drop that camera perhaps even a foot and get it much closer to the water. And I think it would have taken, what I think is a decent picture and made it very, very good. Let's look at the next picture. Again, at the same location and really the same issue. Again, it's nice lighting, nice color, compositions. But again, I think it would have made for a much more compelling photo had I been able to bring that camera down closer to the water, such that these trees would have the illusion of sitting on the horizon. And I think that would have created a much better image. And again, I don't hate this one. It's okay. In fact, I think there's a lot to like about it. But what I realized when I got home is it probably could have been much better. Another example, we had one of the instructors, their wife, played the role of a model for us, and I think that really did a lot to enhance the photo. And the issue that you see here is really the same issue that you saw in the previous 2 photos. I could have gotten the camera a little bit lower, and it would have created the illusion of this young lady standing on the horizon, and I think it would have made for a very compelling shot. You know, as it is, the photo is fine. I think the other thing that I should point out that would have happened if I'd gotten closer, or if I lowered the camera closer to the water, I probably would have gotten a full reflection of this tree. As it is, the reflection kind of gets cut off at this point, and again, it's a missed opportunity in terms of the type of photo I could have gotten. Here's another picture of Arena with the tree, and I finally figured out that I do need to get that camera lower, and what I did was I took it off the tripod. By then I wasn't too paranoid about dropping it into the water. I took a chance, and I held it in my hand as low as I possibly could and snapped this photo. And as you can see, what's happened here is Arena seems to be almost standing on the horizon as well as the tree. And I think those two elements together, along with the lighting, created a very nice photo. And here's another example, taken just a few minutes later, of just a tree. And again, got the camera much lower, and I was able to then take this picture. And what it also enabled me to do was to capture the entirety of the reflection, and almost looks like the bottom of the bottom half of the photo is almost a mirror image of the top half, which is the effect I was ultimately going for. So if you contrast, kind of how this photo comes together with the photo we had first looked at, again, both nice photos that I'm generally happy with. I think this one could have been better if I'd really brought that camera down, and it would have looked much more like this one here. And I think I would have taken, what I think is a decent photo and made it into something that is very, very good. And I wanted to show you one more example. This was also taken in Indonesia, and this is the opposite issue. What I had described in the other examples were instances where the photo could have been much better had I lowered the camera. Lowering the camera doesn't solve all problems or all composition issues. Here's an example where I would have really liked to have been able to raise the camera. And what I would have liked to have done is maybe created a little more separation between, these 2 points here. I would have liked to have created separation such that you can see the full body of water. And the same thing would be true here, create a little bit more separation between these two elements. Now, in fairness to me, I was standing on the highest piece of ground that I could have found. There was no opportunity to go higher. If I had to visit this location again, and keep in mind this is a national park, what I would have done is paid to get a permit that would have allowed me to take my drone and use it in this location. And I would have probably taken it up a few hundred feet or whatever it would take to get those particular effects. Anyway, I hope you found that interesting and then somewhat informative. What I took away from my experience in Indonesia is that I just need to be a little more mindful in terms of how I position the camera insofar as the height off the ground. And it's something that I've noticed in a lot of my photos over the last year or so that I really could help myself if I pay attention to that one thing. One other thing I wanted to point out, by the way, this is the camera that I use. It's a Canon 5D Mark IV. I've had it for a couple of years. Really love the camera. I think it takes great pictures. But one of the things about it is that the LED on the back, if I can show that, does not come out. It just kind of sits there flat. And what that means in the field is that if I'm raising or lowering the camera, for me to see properly through the back, I've got to basically lower my head as low as the camera is. So that does create, something of a challenge on my back and on my knees and on my hips when I do get the camera low to the ground. Again, I'm not trying to make an excuse, but that's just a reality of, what, sometimes you have to deal with in the field. And if I ever get to a point where, I want to, replace all my camera equipment with maybe something that's a little more modern or with a newer technology, that is definitely going to be something that I'm going to look for in anything else that I buy. So with that, if you have stuck with me to this point, I thank you. And if you could, give us a thumbs up or even leave a comment and consider subscribing to the channel. So until next time, we'll see you.